was going to turn out. So I think for me, by default, I fell into what I'm doing today.
So, and then, in terms of your upbringing, how did it shape your ambitions and your drive? Because you say you grew up in a village, and in that village, there was a time you were watching Days of Our Lives, and that inspired you to want to be a psychiatrist, as an example, right? And in so doing, you ended up eventually being in a business where you are advising small businesses. You find yourself, you're advising people when it comes to insurance. But when it comes to ambition, because it looks like you're a person that's driven, how did your upbringing shape that drive and that ambition?
Yeah, I've written a bit of a story in my book, Masheleng, just on how I was raised and what influenced me to do the things that I'm doing now. In the village, we didn't have a lot of what we would call influencers, people who actually did things that will influence how we think, right? A lot of people were doing the general things. People were going to work, coming back from work. Those who were not working, they were not working, earning grants and stuff like that. But we did have uncles who would visit the village. Every once in a while, this uncle will drive a Mercedes-Benz. And it comes into the village. It's the first time everyone sees this Mercedes-Benz. This uncle comes for 2 days, 3 days, they go. The next time they come around, you see another car, right? So it totally changed how we thought things were supposed to be, because you normally idolize your parents until you see what your uncle can do, until you see what somebody else from another village can do, right? Business people were, they were vilified in our village. We didn't really aspire to be business people because of the conversations that we had our parents saying about business people. Most of them, they walked alone, and there would be stories like, no, they sacrificed a child, or they did this, they have a snake, something like that. So we didn't aspire to become business people, because we thought, no, that is pure evil. And when you look at a lot of business people in the village, they were really the black sheep, because they would have the biggest house. And that house now, when you look at it from a perspective of what you've been told about them, it looks so evil. It looks like an evil castle from a distance, right? But we didn't know that where the snakes are kept. And very few people went into those yards. Why? Because rich people don't have time for chit chat. They don't have time for gossip. So a lot of people in the village didn't like them. So they wouldn't visit them. So most of the time they'll be alone or in their businesses. We only got to understand these things when we grew older, maybe getting to know some of the children of those rich people, and they will tell us, no, the reason why you didn't see us, we were studying in Zimbabwe, or we were studying in South Africa. That's why we were not there. It's not like our parents didn't have children. And we would come during the holidays, but when we come, normally we'll go to Vic Falls, or when we come, we'll go to Sun City. So we never saw them. So we didn't really hear the real truth around rich people. I think it's something that kind of shifted how I look at things, and the main reason why we would want to empower people to understand these things, so that nobody is scared really of becoming rich, because there's nothing as beautiful as becoming rich.
So, out of that, that's beautifully answered. What are some of the defining moments that you can think about that have shaped your career to what it is today?
I think the biggest moment for me was when I was just after high school. I think my first year of varsity. We lost our dad when I was, I think, doing standard 6, somewhere there, standard 5, standard 6, somewhere there. And it was 5 of us. My mother was a single mother, and she was working.
5 children?
5 children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
were you the eldest? Or?
No. I'm right in the center, number 3.
Sure.
Yeah. So my mom, I think at the time, I think she was 40 when my dad passed on, right? It's only that when you are young, you always see your parents like these big people, like real elders.
They look old.
Yeah. So 40 looked really old at the time, but it was 5 of us, and she was not working. And because my dad was working as an architect, right? So he was funding most of the debt, the structures. We had a proper house. at the time in the village, a 3-bed with 2 bathrooms in a rural setting. It's a big thing, right? So she struggled to pay off the mortgage for some time. And I remember we once had a conversation around her selling the property so that we could maybe recover a bit of money, pay off the debt, and then we can go and set up elsewhere. But she was too attached to the property. She thought, your dad actually, he was the architect that actually drew this house, so we are not moving. So it was a bit of a challenge. We would have those conversations. And then when I was doing first year, I remember I got a call from my brother, my eldest brother. He called, he said, brah, where are you? The sheriffs are here, they're kicking doors, they're doing all sorts of things. And I was at varsity, I was broke, I couldn't even get into a bus to go home to see how I can help or comfort or anything, or to help with money or anything. And I think at that point, I think something hit me to say, look, what I thought I desired may have changed a bit. I think I need more. I think I need more security. I need to be, I need to put myself in a position where I can actually help the people that I love when they're in trouble, right? I think for me, that was a light bulb moment. I realized that, as kids, we look at parents like superheroes, and we think they understand everything, and we think they can make all the right decisions. But parents are just human beings. They make mistakes all the time. Some things they don't understand. I mean, what was happening at the time, it was just an issue of restructure. She just needed to sit down with the bankers or with a financial advisor to look at her things and restructure the debt so that it can work for her, right? But she didn't know those things. And some of the things that you always teach to say, look, we had a huge yard, right? We could have built rooms at the back to make a bit of money to assist her, right? But she didn't know all of these things, right? So something like this then happens. It becomes permanent. It sticks in your mind. I can imagine the trauma that could have happened to my brother and my sisters because I wasn't there. They were there. And the sheriffs can be aggressive. More especially when they have been looking at you from a distance and be like, this one's. They think one day is one day. So yeah, that's that for me. I think it was a big turnaround. In terms of how I looked at things and what I aspired to become. Otherwise, at the time, before then, I was just at school, just enjoying life.
So sometimes building a sustainable or successful life is about moving from one challenge to the next and overcoming it. It's purely that's what it is. It's not that you didn't face a lot of challenges. So apart from having faced that family challenge, what are the